One may enter the literary parlor via just about any door, be it the prison door, the madhouse door, or the brothel door. There is but one door one may not enter it through, which is the nursery door. The critics will never forgive you such. The great Rudyard Kipling is one to have suffered this. I keep wondering to myself what this peculiar contempt towards anything related to childhood is all about. Ende. Good evening, everybody, or morning to some people. Sorry I haven't done a lot of streams lately, but it was a crazy month in November. And, well, at least for the next 20 days, things should be good. And you'll probably see a lot more streams from me. But before I get to the good stuff, I'm gonna just go over the usual beginning stuff. And my thank yous. It's my first video of the month, so I get to say my thank yous to everyone who's donated. And I'm gonna disclose how much money has been donated to me, so people know. And no one really ever does this, so. All right, and to start off, give me a second. That's YouTube changed a lot of things around, so things are horrible as usual. That's not a surprise. So instead of getting it from my live feed, I'm just gonna go and do it from here. So let's move on over here. All right, so I work with full disclosure and transparency. Basically, everything that I have is for free, for public. Anybody can take it and use it. Do what you want for it. If you want to make money for it, go ahead and make money for it. Now, I usually ask people to donate via Bitcoin or Vertcoin. I've received 0 donations for the last 18 months since I've had those addresses, and you can always check them on the blockchain. These 2 transactions were from me, from my Patreon, giving to Susie Dawson when she needed it, and for Vertcoin, no donations yet. So still $0 over 18 months, even with all the crazy stuff going on with cryptocurrency. And let me get this block here so people can't see what the name of the person who donated for the month of November. MC, I'll just say the abbreviations, donated 113 on 11/3 when I did that live stream about what's going on in Seattle. So that was that. And I'm gonna switch it over real quick because I want to show also since the beginning, which was September 22nd of 2019. So you know that I've how much in total that I've had, and I need to adjust something. So give me a second here. I have to adjust that little black background here. I should make it a little bit easier. Okay, that's better. So there you go. From only one person donated via PayPal. It's in the description box on YouTube, Steam it, Vim.tv. You can always send a donation via Google Super Chat. And let's see. But of course, Google and YouTube take a big chunk out of that, and I have to have what, $100 before I can even get out anything from it. So yeah, it sucks. Now I have received. So thank you, MC, for those donations. Keeps me going, and there are many that donate via DLive cryptocurrency. So I should not forget that. Dale Bold donated a lemon and ice cream, and previously a lot more stuff. So thank you, Dale Bold. I hope I'm saying that correctly. For YouTube super chats for this month, for the month of November 2019, sorry. Grant Jarvis, $5 Australian. Flathead Politics, $5. Awesome, thank you for that. And since throughout the history, all the people that I should be thanking, all the time, Ronnie Yuya, Port Film Co-op, Myermier, Eagle Plane and Anchor, additionally, those are helping me little by little, which is great. Also, go to Flathead Politics, and Zoom Truth. They work on a website called zoomtruth.com, which I can probably finally start working on in the month of December. Links are all in here, and of course, with every video or every live stream, you can always join me on a live stream. The link is here in Zoom meeting. Oh, I gotta get rid of that black background. Sorry. The meeting numbers here. You can call in. You can just join. Just a special shout out to Shirley as well. Her husband Curtis went to the hospital for about a week. So whatever you want to send him, good vibes, energy, prayers, wish her well and her husband. Hopefully things are going to be okay. There's two links here, which I am going to now go ahead and start. Well, actually, one more thing. If you don't have any money to donate, because I know things are rough, you can prove the globe Earth and get $15,000 from Zen Garcia. Then donate to me a 10% finder's fee. Hey, it should be pretty easy to prove the globe, right? It's supposedly done. Of course, prove is the wrong word for it. All right, so that's that. Now we can finally get to the Neverending Story. The Neverending Story was written by Michael Ende. I don't know how to say it in German very well. I know my mother-in-law does it very well. Hi, Shirley. How you doing? Hope things are going good. And he wrote a couple of books. I need to read the other two. The only reason I read the Neverending Story was just because the movie, and I know a lot of people like the movie, so I went back, watched it. I actually showed my daughter, who's 6, the Neverending Story. She enjoyed it. She thought the beginning was a little bit boring, but I got her the hardcover book and also The Princess Bride, which I'll read to her later too, and show her the movie. Now, the thing is, the book is very, very different. The Neverending Story, the book, very different than the movie. It has, I would say the movie covered a third of, maybe even a quarter of basically what the book, some say it's half, but there's just a lot more to it than what's shown in the movie. And you can easily find what's in the in the book. You can buy it for cheap. You can probably find it for free, get a PDF copy, which I did, just so it's easier to read. I've got my own copy. I should just bring it down here to show you, but I'll show you another day. But here we go. Let's see. I need to show you guys the main monitor. All right. So there's a lot to show here. I know it's going to be a little bit hard to see, but I'll try to do my best. Now, this thing that I wrote, Return to Fantastic and Gnosis of the Neverending Story, I tried to make it as brief as possible with some snippets, but it still ended up being 30 pages long. I mean, you can just read the entire Neverending story, the book, 211 pages. I mean, it's just, yeah. But anyways, I'm going to do my best to try and give you a little bit of just some of the brief things to look over. And what's great is that in the book, each story part introduces new characters. Of course, there's the original crew, but there's always a new setting. There's a new characters that are encountered. new problem, and just it's very, very easy to follow. I mean, each of these are like individual stories put into a book in order, and all these small parts lead up to the end, the culmination. It's pretty great, and that people think it as just a children's book is kind of misleading. Yes, there's children in it. Yes, it has very fantastical things. You're in Fantastica. In the movie, they call it Fantasia, but in the book, it's called Fantastica. And I should get a little bit more into that. But again, I just want to go over 2 articles before I get into the whole Gnosis of the Neverending Story. This live stream might take 2 to 3 hours if you're willing to listen to this. Of course, you don't have to. You could probably read the book in about 2 to 3 hours, but some things you might want to catch. So first is there was a article back in August 27th, 1984 by Logan Bentley. This is an archive of people.com. The title is An Irate Michael Ende. Sorry. I don't know. Blasts the disgusting film made from his bestseller, The Neverending Story. So, The Neverending Story, he hated the movie. But if you read the book, once you read the book, you'll kind of understand why. But here, I think the journalist is trying to go over that with Michael. So, in his native West Germany, author Michael Ende is a phenomenon. In 1979, his children's fantasy novel, The Neverending Story, soared to #1 on the country's bestseller lists. Within a couple of months, 2 other Ende works, Momo and The Mirror in the Mirror, rose to the 2nd and 3rd spots respectively, which I really want to read now. Critical reaction, says Ende, ranged from amazement to black rage. You can enter the literary salon from prison, from the insane asylum, from a whorehouse, everywhere but from the children's room. The hero of The Never-Ending Story is the shy fat boy named Bastian Balthazar Bucks, who escapes from his sorrow-filled world by becoming absorbed in the pages of The Never-Ending Story. This book within the book is set in the land of Fantastica, which is gradually disappearing because people have lost interest in fantasy. Bastian's aid is enlisted by Atreyu, a young hunter from Fantastica. It becomes Bastian's mission to save Fantastica by recreating it from his own imagination. Before his odyssey ends, he has learned how to love and to dream and to believe that dreams can come true. Although Ende, who considers himself apolitical, didn't intend it, the book, with its utopian message, became the Bible of anti-nuclear activists. The Neverending Story stayed at the top of the charts for more than 3 years, sold more than 1 million copies in West Germany, and has been translated into 27 languages. Doubleday's hardcover edition, which came out in the US last October, has sold more than 100,000 copies. Paperback rights have been bought by Viking/Penguin for 6 figures. It is the first of Ende's novels to be published here. It is no surprise, therefore, that the film, there are 2 versions, one in German, the other in English, is enjoying similar success. Directed by Wolfgang Das Boot Peterson, the movie has grossed more than $12 million in West Germany alone. It opened in 1,000 theaters across the US last month. A special effects filled confection, it cost a whopping $25 million to make, the most expensive German production in history. Nevertheless, Neverending received some lukewarm reviews, the most critical of them coming from Ende. A usually reserved and thoughtful man, he held an impassioned press conference in Stuttgart last April to denounce that revolting movie and demanded that his name be removed from the credits. It was, the makers of this film simply did not understand the book at all, he complains. They just wanted to make money. Yes, that is the film industry. All right. Ende, who pocketed only $50,000 for the rights, was not initially opposed to translating his work to film. In fact, he and Peterson collaborated on a script. I worked as an advisor, says Ende, because I wanted a beautiful movie. I trusted them. Ende charges that Peterson later secretly rewrote the screenplay. I saw the final script 5 days before the premiere, and only as a result of a judicial verdict in Munich. I was horrified, says Ende. They had changed the whole sense of the story. Fantastica appears with no creative force from Bastian. For me, this was the essence of the book. Still, Peterson insists that his film is very faithful to Ende's novel. There's a little bit more going over to his history, but I might as well read it, just only a little bit more. Born in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, I don't know if that's even right. Ende was the only child of surrealist artist Edgar Ende and his physiotherapist wife, Louise. In 1947, he enrolled in Munich's Otto Falkenberg's actor's studio. The parents of my first girlfriend paid my tuition, he says. They wanted to get me away from her. He began writing satirical sketches for cabarets, then did film and theater reviews for Munich radio. One day, an artist friend asked Ende to write the text for a children's book he was illustrating. The result, 1960s Jim Button and Luke the Engine Driver, his first bestseller. I had no idea how to write a children's book, recalls Ende, who relied on his childhood memories. He has also penned 2 plays. Ende, 54, and his wife of 20 years, former actress Ingeborg Hoffmann, 63, share their 7-room house in the hills outside Rome with 5 cats, 2 dogs, and 5 turtles. They have no children, but Ingeborg's son from a previous marriage lives in West Germany. Although much of Ende's fame and fortune derives from myth, when it comes to the changing taste of the reading public, he is a realist. Books float on a wave of fashion, he shrugs. Soon they will switch to things other than fantasy. He is less complacent about the future of film, especially the sequel to Neverending, which is now being planned. In an attempt to halt the project, the frustrated author has brought suit against the movie's German production company for breach of contract. Of his seeming inability to let the never-ending story end, Ende says simply, "My moral and artistic existence is at stake in this film." Just something interesting, so you'll realize how much of the book isn't in the movie and why the author of the book is such a critic against the movie. You'll have to read the book, and I'm going to tell you, the book is far better than the movie. And I really like the movie. That's what happens when you grow up watching it. Okay, I found this one just because it had the full quote that I had in a quote of the day. This is by headfullofbooks.blogspot.com, Wednesday, April 22nd, 2015. And I just found this today before I was setting up. But I think I read it really quickly, and it's got some interesting things to note. The Neverending Story by Michael Ende. Writing a review for the Neverending Story by Michael Ende feels a little like writing a review for a Harry Potter book. Many people who haven't read the book have seen the movie and remember it fondly, and therefore have no intention of going back to read the book. With this in mind, I will give you the barest of summaries in case you are the only other person in the world who hasn't seen the movie besides me. Then I will focus the rest of this review on information on the author and what symbolism I could glean out of it. And so this is going to be good because I'm going to compare notes to what he has. Summary: a young boy named Bastian Balthazar Bucks is chased by his tormentors from school into a bookstore. While there, he is enticed to steal a very pretty book, The Neverending Story. He hides out in an attic at a school and begins reading the book. The plot then jumps to the story and back to Bastian. In this story, we are introduced to a young hero, Atreyu, who is tasked with saving Fantastica from the Nothing. By locating a human child willing to enter the magical land to give the childlike empress a new name, the Nothing is taking away all dreams and fantasy from the land. At some point while reading the book, Bastian enters the story and he starts to recognize himself. He thinks it is an hallucination, but eventually he realizes that he is the human child who must go to Fantastica to save it. And after he figures out how to get in, he finally does enter the realm where all kinds of fantastic adventures of his own making await him. The book is divided into 2 parts, before and after Bastian enters Fantastica. Apparently the movie ends after part 1, so if you've only seen the movie, then you should really read the book to get the full story. That is my plug for reading. The author, Michael Ende, was German. The book was first published in Germany in 1979 and translated into English in the early 1980s. Though Ende was one of the most celebrated German authors of the 20th century, he was often felt diminished when people referred to him as just a children's writer. In 1985, he wrote, "One may enter the literary parlor via just about any door, be it the prison door, the madhouse door, or the brothel door. There is but one door one may not enter it through, which is the nursery door. The critics will never forgive you such. The great Rudyard Kipling is one to have suffered this. I keep wondering to myself what this peculiar contempt towards anything related to childhood is all about." Ende wanted his work to speak to the human condition, issues that children aged 8 through 80 grapple with. Born in Germany in 1929, he lived through the Nazi era. He was horrified by the war and action of the Nazis. His father, a surrealist painter, was deemed a degenerate by the party and so had to paint and work in secret. By the end of the war, though, he was only 14. Ende was drafted but tore up his papers and worked for the resistance in the Munich area. Up until his death in 1995 from stomach cancer, Ende used his writing to shine a light on cultural and spiritual problems in the world, drawing upon his experiences from the war years. Rich with symbolism, The Neverending Story is a classic children's tale designed to teach young people to come to age emotionally. Children might miss all the lessons because they are painlessly presented in fantastical imagery and wild tales of adventure. The story is an important contribution to literature because it addresses the dangers of tyranny. While Adolf Hitler and his Nazis are not directly mentioned in the story, the tale nonetheless reveals an understanding of the emotionally stunted mindset that leads dictators to hunger for power. Through the character of young Bastian Balthazar Bucks, the reader gains an intuitive understanding of how life's tragedies can lead to commit atrocious acts. The author, although through Bastian, is reaching out to the youth of the world, telling them that the journey from pain to joy is achievable. Bastian learns eventually that he has to accept himself and to give up any preconceived ideas about himself, both good and bad, if he's able to move on and actually be any help to his world. The last chapters of the book are sublime. They are so full of symbolism and important messages we should all heed. For these messages alone, the whole book, even the slow bits in the middle, make the book worth a second look. I originally selected the book because it was referenced in another book, 501 Must-Reads by LBRY, where the concluding sentence hooked me. It is a wonderfully satisfying and uplifting novel for readers of all ages. I listened to the audiobook, which is magically narrated by Gerard Doyle, who, if I'm not mistaken, was the reader of the Aragon series. I have all kinds of pleasant associations with his voice, that's for sure. I wholeheartedly recommend it in this format, though. Be sure to go back and look at the print edition, which is divided into 26 chapters, and each chapter begins with the corresponding letter of the alphabet. Very clever. I didn't notice that one. Wow. Okay. So we can now get to my findings on it. So I've got quite a lot of stuff which I'll go over. I'm just gonna go over in order, and I won't really go by go through this too much unless I want to reference a couple more things. So basically, you're gonna get what you're seeing here, so you can see a little bit better. All right, so overview. This is just how I kind of did it, and this is just working at a couple of days, just because in a small amount of time. I really want to get this out there in a couple of snippets, but oh well. I'm going to do it now until I'm done. Overview. The Neverending Story, written by Michael Ende, has many Gnostic themes, and the book goes into more depth than the movie. This document will attempt to uncover many of these themes from the book, as well as the characters and objects. I may edit some things while we're going through it. Plot summary: A boy named Bastian steals a book called The Neverending Story. The book is about the Nothing, a mysterious force that is devouring all of Fantastica. The only one that can stop the Nothing is the childlike Empress, but she is sick. To cure her sickness and thus save Fantastica, she chooses Atreyu as the one who would find the one who could cure her. Atreyu accepts the great quest, and experiencing Atreyu's hardships, Bastian realizes that he's the one Atreyu is looking for, the reader of the book. And the differences from the movie. There are many differences in the book from the movie. I would venture to say that the movie tells not even a quarter of what's in the book. Not only that, but most of the Gnostic themes as well. So a lot of the Gnostic themes that are in the book aren't really in the movie too much. But you read more of the book, you can be like, wow. All right, so a couple themes that you might be familiar with, which I've covered in a couple of my videos in the past. The revealer and the redeemer. The revealer is Atreyu, who must find the redeemer, Bastion, in order to save the childlike emperor so that the nothing may be stopped from devouring all of Fantastica. Interesting enough, Bastion, once he's able to get back to his own world, must become the Redeemer, so that other humans may visit Fantastica to help fix one world, also help fix the other. So not only is Bastion the Redeemer of Fantastica, he becomes the revealer of sorts in the outer world, which is called Earth, the human world. So I think that was pretty good. There's a lot of circularity stuff that goes on with the Neverending Story book, which is fantastic, but there's also a hitch because it's never a complete never-ending story where it just repeats itself, because then in itself things would end. So therefore there has to be differences that are created in order for the story to keep going, because within these differences it won't end, you know. It's deep. It's deep. All right, so another one, I may have to rework this one because I didn't really look back at it, but Mother Sophia and the choosing of her champion. This is one more of my Gnosis things. In my ayahuasca experiences and since, Mother Sophia must choose her champion to bestow upon him limitless powers that can only be granted by her. In the Never-Ending Story, it is partially bestowed upon Atreyu with the Aron to only protect and guide him in finding Bastion. When Bastion obtains the Aron, he's given the full extent of her powers, which is... it's the greatest and oddest thing about that is, like, I don't see myself as being able to imagine that, but after the ayahuasca experience and reading through all this, it's like, wow, that's crazy. So you can read up on my 3 ayahuasca experiences and tie things in that way. You should be able to find them in my videos. Okay, hope. It is only with hope that all is not lost. Without hope, why do anything? Why bother? If it is pointless, if nothing is real, if nothing matters, then why do anything? This theme is often repeated, more so within the Swamp of Sadness with the death of Artax and a conversation with Morla, the Aged One. We'll get to more of that maybe later. Archons, I know a lot of people like the idea of Archons. Mentioned within the Neverending Story are the Manipulators, which is just mentioned once and by Gmork. Gaia, the Dark Princess, which I'll get into more detail. Gmork, the Werewolf, and again, I already repeated that. So, if you don't know, Gmork is the big bad werewolf in the movie that's chasing after Atreyu to stop Atreyu from finding the one that's going to save Fantastica by curing the childlike empress with new name. I'm going to read this. I'm going to read all these snippets because I copy and pasted them for a reason. Rather than going directly into that just part, I've added a little bit before and a little bit afterwards. But again, if you want to read the whole book, you should read the book and you'll kind of see these things yourself. So that's right, Sonny said. Gmork, in fact, that's the heart of the matter. Don't you see? If humans believe Fantastica doesn't exist, they won't get the idea of visiting your country. And as long as they don't know you creatures of Fantastica as you really are, the manipulators do what they like with them. What can they do? Whatever they please. When it comes to controlling human beings, there's no better instrument than lies, because you see, humans live by beliefs, and beliefs can be manipulated. The power to manipulate beliefs is the only thing that counts. That's why I sided with the powerful and served them, because I wanted to share their power. I want no part in it, Atreyu cried out. Take it easy, you little fool, the werewolf growled. When your turn comes to jump into the nothing, you too will be a nameless servant of power, with no will of your own. Who knows what use they will make of you? Maybe you'll help them persuade people to buy things they don't need, or hate things they don't know, or hate things they know nothing about, or hold beliefs that make them easy to handle, or doubt the truths that might save them. Yes, you little fantastic, and big things will be done in the human world with your help. Wars started, empires founded. Some things I left out is basically what they're talking about in the book, which isn't mentioned in the movie. The werewolf explains that what happens to you Fantasticans after they're swallowed up into nothing is they end up going to Earth as humans. And what our humans are lies. And I think I did copy paste some of this into it. So that's the context of what it is that once you become humans, you're controlled by your beliefs and the manipulators, the power behind nothing and everything like that, are the ones manipulating the humans. A little bit more backstory. Gaia, the Dark Princess, is the one who was, I think, in the Lost City or the Silver City. She was the ruler there, and welcomes Gmork, the werewolf, in all manners, and tricked him into revealing his mission, and thus kind of chained him up. And you don't see that in the movie. And the werewolf, no matter what, Gmork couldn't get out of it. And so Gaia, the Dark Princess, willingly went ahead and jumped into the nothing. And I'm wondering if she ends up being part of the manipulators, because she manipulated Gmork pretty well. But that's a story for another time, and you're going to hear that a lot. Maya, illusion, revealed by Gmork to Atreyu what it is to enter the nothing. To be in the world of humans is to be unable to distinguish between reality and illusion. Ascension and descension. So basically that whole part I did pretty much kind of tell you. Gmork, the werewolf, told me, said Atreyu, that when a Fantastican is swallowed by the nothing, he becomes a lie. Is that true? Yes, it is true, said the childlike empress, and her golden eyes darkened. All lies were once creatures of Fantastica. They are made of the same stuff, but they have lost their true nature and become unrecognizable. But, as you might expect from a half-and-half creature like Gmork, he told you only half the truth. There are two ways of crossing the dividing line between Fantastica and the human world, a right one and a wrong one. When Fantasticans are cruelly dragged across it, that's the wrong way. When humans, children of man, come to our world of their own free will, that's the right way. Every human who has been here has learned something that could be learned only here and returned to his own world a changed person. Because he had seen you creatures in your true form, he was able to see his own world and his fellow humans with new eyes. Where he had only seen dull, everyday reality, he now discovered wonders and mysteries. That is why humans were glad to come to Fantastica. And the more these visits enriched our world, the fewer lies there were in theirs, the better it became. Just as our two worlds can injure each other, they can also make each other whole again. For a time, both were silent. Then she went on. Humans are our hope. One of them must come and give me a new name, and he will come. This book is just one of those books where you can just talk about it or think about it, and it's never ending. And that's why what I'm going to mention near the end of this live stream is I'm going to do something. I'm going to maybe people will enjoy it, maybe people won't, but I'm going to do it anyway. Ouroboros, the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. This is represented within a book, a story within a story, and of course the symbol of the Auron uses two snakes eating its own tail, one light and one dark. And so it would go on forever and ever, for any change in the sequence of events was unthinkable. Only he, Bastion, could do anything about it. And he would have to do something, or else he too would be included in the circle. It seemed to him that the story had been repeated 1,000 times, as though there were no more before There were no before and no after, and everything had happened at once. Now I realized why the old man's hand trembled. The circle of eternal return was an end without an end. So, again, what's different in the book that the movie doesn't have is, and it happens so fast you don't see it in the movie. In the movie, what the childlike empress does to convince Bastion to call out her own name is he sees Atreyu die. You can't see it in the movie very well, but that doesn't really happen. I mean, yes, Atreyu kind of dies in some way, he's just asleep. Really, let's just say it that way. And what ends up happening is the childlike empress forces Bastion's hand by going to the old man of the mountain, and he's just described. He writes down everything that happens. Everything that happens can't be changed, but he can't look into the future. And the childlike empress is trying to find what's going to happen, and of course, because now she's part of the written story of Fantastica, that's kind of also her end, that she's going to lose her ability to save Fantastica. And of course there's this cycle of a story that he goes, well, let's just read what's in the story, and they read what's in the story, and that includes Bastion reading the story, and it just keeps going around in the circle. And Bastion realizes he needs to do something because this is going around in an eternity without end, with the same story being repeated until he goes out and go ahead and changes it. So it's pretty awesome. And that's how Bastion ends up coming in. But the whole point of Atreyu, that you realize, just like in the movie, is the reason what the childlike empress knew exactly what she needs to do. She knew how to get Bastion to come into Fantastica to save it, and it's to choose someone who would probably hook Bastion into following and just keep reading, right? And so Atreyu had to go on all these adventures to tell the childlike empress what needed to happen, and she already knew. And the whole point was just to get Bastion hooked onto the story, so he's able to now understand what he needs to do in order to save Fantastica. So in a way, Atreyu was used, but everything turns out well for Atreyu in the end. Atreyu is a big part of the book, and he kind of gets overlooked in the movie a lot after Bastion comes in. So that's just a story for another time. All right, the creation story. Bastion, once saving the childlike empress, is able to do what you wish. That's what's written onto the Arin. It's just like there's a lot of similarities between the Ring of Power and Lord of the Rings. His creation is Perlin, the Might Forest, and Goab, the Desert of Colors. He also created the most beautiful but very, very dangerous creature in all of Fantastica, Grogroman, the Many-Colored Death, and the Lord of the Desert of Colors. He also created many other things, but they didn't turn out exactly like how he expected, and wasn't sure if he should have. So you're going to go ahead and see. It's very much like he becomes a demiurge, right? And what's interesting about this, to give you more context, is that Arin is different from a human. Basically, the Arin is a amulet. It's called a gem. Many other things given from the childlike empress, and childlike empress bestows the power, her powers, to the wearer of it. So basically, you can wish whatever you want. The only problem is, after you make a wish, you lose more of your memories. And the entire premise of it is to ensure that the person who's the wearer of the Arin can find the thing he wishes for the most. What is it that you most want? And if you don't find it, you're kind of stuck in Fantastica without a way to get out, and not remembering anything of yourself. And Whew. We'll get into more of that later too. Creativeness is another theme. What made Bastion different was his ability to create stories, which is mentioned throughout a lot within the book, where he just kind of comes up with stories, even within his. We'll get more into characters more, and you'll kind of learn more about them. But yeah, it basically in turn helps build Fantastica anew, because basically he also remembers from reading it, so he can recreate a lot of Fantastica, and he uses the ring. The Arin, to wish for a lot of things, and it's totally new adventure. I mean, I would say, yeah, people think it's the movie was just what one part of of two stories, because there's one. The beginning part is basically getting Bastion into Fantastica to save it. The second half is Bastion trying to get out of Fantastica back to Earth, in order to also save Earth and save Fantastica, and by doing that, he has to pretty much get humans to visit Fantastica again. But in order for him to get back to Earth, he has to know what he really wants, and you'll end up finding that at the end. The journey home, lost history, and ego, and there's a lot of this. Trying to find your way home. Everyone losing their history and their memories, and then just this whole buildup of your own ego. And again, this story is, of a kid. I mean, a kid with an ego is pretty small compared to a lot of the adults we know that have huge egos. The more Bastion used the Arin, the more he lost memories of his world. The Arin gives humans great power, as it makes their wishes come true, but it makes the user forget their past. It gives you the means, but it takes away your purpose. Bastion's character seems to change the more he uses the Arin. It's as if ego is taking over, because he forgets himself. If a human loses all memory of themselves, they reside in the city of old emperors without a way to get back to their own world. Sorry, I seem to be repeating myself before I even get to the text. Characters. Bastion Balthazar Bucks, the main protagonist in the story, aside from you, of course, because you're the reader of the story. From Bastion's point of view, the main protagonist of the story is Atreyu, until he realizes that he himself is the hero of his own story. His mother had recently passed away. His father doesn't say anything to him. He's overweight and bullied at school. However, his passion lies in books. He often talks to himself, thinking up stories, inventing names and words that don't exist. That's him before he starts reading the book. Interesting to note that Bastion Balthazar Bucks is the main character. He steals the book from a bookshop owner named Carl Conrad Coriander, and he mentions that all synchronicity, you could probably add synchronicity as a theme, that he has 3 C's in all his names. Anyways, Mr. Coriander is the bookshop owner from which Bastion steals the book from. At the end of the Neverending story, it is found that Mr. Coriander had the same experience as Bastion. So Mr. Coriander understood what Bastion went through. He saved Fantastica and he came back. That's that. What's mentioned quite often in the book, 11 times actually, is it's story for that's the story for another time, and it always is. I mean, there can never be a never-ending story sequel written by the author, because the author is now dead. So the only way to continue on the story is for someone else to create it. And that gets harder and harder because you got copyrights and all this other stuff. The only way you can actually do it is to create fan fiction, to create the story asking for nothing in return, just in order for someone to be able to continue telling the story. That's the beauty of it. And I wonder, I would love to have a conversation with Michael on the there was some way to do it. And it's like, did you plan this all along? You know, I can't go back to when he was alive to ask him all of that. All right, the Nothing, the main antagonist in this story. There really isn't, which is interesting because the Nothing comes in two forms. If you think about it a lot, because the Nothing in the beginning of the story is what's devouring. It's an outside force. Basically, there were powers behind the Nothing that set it loose to devour Fantastica. While it is not actually a character in the story, the aim in the never-ending story is to prevent the Nothing from making nothing out of everything. But if you think about it, the Nothing also exists within the Auron in making memories, turning memories to nothing of the wearer of the Auron. So, you know, what if you don't have any memories at all, you're basically nothing. And that comes in many ways, because once Atreyu starts passing the 3 magic gates, which you're gonna probably understand once we get a little bit further into it, he doesn't remember who he was. He doesn't have any memories. And so when he talks to Gmork, he doesn't know that Gmork was looking for him until Gmork says his name, and he realizes, hey, Atreyu, that's me. And he calls himself nobody. You're nobody, you're nothing. The Nothing comes in the external force and an internal force. Nothing of your memories, nothing of the outside force. What's interesting, I wonder if it just entails more thinking of how the Nothing was threatened, who were the powers behind the Nothing, right? And that requires more thought. Maybe I have to read some more things. Who knows? Okay, so Chiron is just someone who moves the story along. He's a centaur with the greatest, most famous doctor in all Fantastica. Diagnosed the childlike empress where 499 other physicians failed. Passed on to Atreyu the great quest in the Auron. So he did possess the Auron for a little bit in order to give it to Atreyu. Very much like Falcor, the luck dragon, held onto the Auron for a while to give back to Atreyu. So it does have some significance to it, but we don't know what. It's just like when Samwise Gamgee held the One Ring for Frodo and gave it back. Even though he only held it for a little while, you know, he also was subject to what effects there were with it. So we just don't know exactly to what extent in the Neverending story. Anyways, snippet from the book. Auron gives you great power, he said solemnly, but you must not make use of it, for the childlike empress herself never makes use of her power. Auron will protect you and guide you, but whatever comes your way, you must never interfere, because from this moment on, your own opinion ceases to count. For that same reason, you must go unarmed. You must let what happens happen. Everything must be equal in your eyes, good and evil, beautiful and ugly, foolish and wise, just as it is in the eyes of the childlike empress. You may only search and inquire, never judge. Always remember that, Atreyu. The fascinating part of that statement is that rings true. The fascinating part of that statement that rings true is that the Mother Sophia never makes use of her power, but she chooses to bestow her powers onto those she trusts. Does this remind anyone of the One Ring of Power from the Lord of the Rings? So it's oh man, I think I'll just save it because my thoughts just go crazy when even as I'm going through this. Hold on, let me look at some chats if there are any. 5 watching. Okay. Atreyu, a child hero chosen by the childlike empress and bestowed upon him the Aran, someone capable of finding paths in the pathless wilderness and who will shrink from no danger or hardship. One may consider Atreyu as the revealer. Both his parents were killed by a purple buffalo soon after he was born. All the men and women in his village together helped raise him and named him Atreyu, which means son of all. The author definitely does go into a lot of symbolism. I mean, he even mentions Jesus, but he's mentioning him through Bastion because he got in trouble once in school when they're talking about, I'm not sure if it was a school or if it was his church. I can't remember right now, but they're talking about how Jesus Christ was ate and drank like a man, and you know he just had a innocent question. Is like, did Jesus also had to go pee and poop? And he got reprimanded for just asking that question. And so I think that's probably something that Michael Ende asked as well, and probably got in trouble for. So, I mean, honestly, that is a good question. The childlike empress, very similar. I think I actually asked that question once too. Anyways, the childlike empress, very similar to Mother Sophia. There's some interesting descriptions of her. The childlike empress is ill. Only she can stop the nothing. However, she cannot stop it until she is cured. The only way to cure her from her illness is to bestow upon her a new name from a human of the outer world. And like, there's like the most curious part is you don't get to know much about this childlike empress. I mean, she's very vague. There are some things that are hinted at her and what she can do, but like, you're always just wondering why does she, I mean, why does this, like, why does she do the things that she does if she can do all these things? And so there's like questions of that, but you know, at this point, like, no one really knows. And so she's one of these great powers with no foreseen limits. And so how she gets ill and stuff like that, is that just part of a ploy? There's just so much to just kind of wonder about. Here's a snippet from the book, a couple actually. The childlike empress, as her title indicates, was looked upon as the ruler over all the innumerable provinces of the Fantastican Empire, but in reality she was far more than a ruler. She was something entirely different. She didn't rule, she had never used force or made use of her power. She never issued commands, and she never judged anyone. She never interfered with anyone and never had to defend herself against any assailant, for no one would have thought of rebelling against her or of harming her in any way. In her eyes, all her subjects were equal. She was simply there in a special way. She was the center of all life in Fantastica, and every creature, whether good or bad, beautiful or ugly, merry or solemn, foolish or wise, all owed their existence to her existence. Without her, nothing could have lived any more than a human body can live if it has lost its heart. All knew this to be so, though no one fully understood her secret. Thus, she was respected by all the creatures of the Empire, and her health was of equal concern to them all, for her death would have meant the end of them all. The end of the boundless Fantastican realm. The ties are all there, as more is revealed by Falcor in his conversation with Atreyu. They flew in silence, drawing steadily nearer the ivory tower. After a while, the dragon spoke again. Have you seen her, Atreyu? Who? The childlike empress, or rather, the golden-eyed commander of wishes, because that's how you must address her when you come into her presence. No, I've never seen her. I have. That was long ago. Your great-grandfather must have been a little boy at the time, and I was a young cloud snapper with a head full of foolishness. One night I saw the moon shining so big and round, and I tried to grab it out of the sky. When I finally gave up, I dropped the exhaustion and landed near the ivory tower. That night, the Magnolia Pavilion had opened its petals wide, and a childlike empress was sitting right in the middle of it. She cast a glance at me, just one short glance, but I hardly know how to put it. That glance made a new dragon of me. What does she look like? Like a little girl, but she's much older than the oldest inhabitants of Fantastica, or rather, she's ageless. Yes, said Atreyu, but now she's deathly sick. How can I tell that there's no hope? How can I tell her that there's no hope? Don't try to mislead her. She can't be fooled. Tell her the truth. But suppose it kills her. I don't think it will work out that way, said Falcor. You wouldn't, said Atreyu, because you're a luck dragon. For a while nothing was said. When at last they spoke together for the third time, it was Atreyu who broke the silence. Falcor, he said, I'd like to ask you one more thing. Fire away. Who is she? What do you mean? Auron has power over all the inhabitants of Fantastica, the creatures of both light and darkness. It also has power over you and me. And yet the childlike empress never exerts power. It's as if she weren't there, and yet she is in everything. Is she like us? No, said Falcor, she's not like us. She's not a creature of Fantastica. We all exist because she exists, but she's of a different kind. Then is she? Atreyu hesitated. Is she human? No, said Falcor, she's not human. Well then, and Atreyu repeated his question, who is she? After a long silence, Falcor answered, no one in Fantastica knows. No one can know. That's the deepest secret of our world. I once heard a wise man say that if anyone were to know the whole answer, he would cease to exist. I don't know what he meant. That's all I can tell you. And now, said Atreyu, she'll die and we'll die with her and we'll never know her secret. This time Falcor made no answer, but a smile played across the corners of his leonine mouth, as though to say, nothing of the kind will happen. After that, they spoke no more. But there is more. Gmork, the werewolf, told me, said Atreyu, that when a Fantastican is swallowed up by nothing, he becomes a lie. Is that true? I already read this part, so I'm going to go ahead and skip that one. Whew. We are on page 10 of 30, so I'm a third of the way through. All right. Some water to help me here, and a little bit of chocolate. Should smoothen my throat. Good chocolate. All right. It's about an hour, so I'll probably be done in about 2.5 hours. Here we go. Moral of the Aged One. If one thinks of flat Earth with there being at the North Pole, Mount Meru, this would be Fantastica's equivalent. However, this may also not be the case, as the innermost center of Fantastica is the Ivory Tower, which resides the childlike empress, Mother Sophia. Here's a snippet. He dreamed, much more distinctly than before, of the purple buffalo he had wanted to kill. This time Atreyu was without his bow and arrow. He felt very, very small, and the buffalo's face filled the whole sky. And the face spoke to him. He couldn't understand every word, but this is the gist of what it said. If you had killed me, you would be a hunter now, but because you let me live, I can help you, Atreyu. Listen to me. There is in Fantastica a being older than all other beings. In the far north, far, far from here, lie the swamps of sadness. In the middle of those swamps, there is a mountain. Tortoiseshell Mountain, it's called. There lives Morla the Aged One. Go and see Morla the Aged One. Then Atreyu woke up. Interesting is that Morla represents the nihilist. Having lived for so long, having witnessed it all, nothing matters to her. To her, nothing is real, so nothing matters. Because she lost all hope. Things changing. Again, the theme pops up. So, a snippet from the book. She took a while to answer. Sakes alive, Auron. We haven't seen that in a long time, have we, old women? The emblem of the childlike empress. Not in a long time. The childlike empress is sick, said Atreyu. Did you know that? It's all the same to us, isn't it, old woman? Morla replied. She seemed to be talking to herself, perhaps because she had no one else to talk to for heaven knows how long. If we don't save her, she'll die, Atreyu cried. The nothing is spreading everywhere. I've seen it myself. Morla stared at him out of her great empty eyes. We don't mind, do we, old woman? But then we shall all die, Atreyu screamed, every last one of us. Shakes alive, said Morla. But what do we care? Nothing matters to us anymore. It's all the same to us. But you'll be destroyed too, Morla, cried Atreyu angrily. Or do you expect because you're so old to outlive Fantastica? Sakes alive, Morla gurgled. We're old, son, much too old. Lived long enough, seen too much. When you know as much as we do, nothing matters. Things just repeat. Day and night, summer and winter, the world is empty and aimless. Everything circles around. Whatever starts up must pass away. Whatever is born must die. It all cancels out. Good and bad, beautiful and ugly. Everything's empty. Nothing is real. Nothing matters. Atreyu didn't know what to answer. The aged one's dark, empty, pond-sized eyes paralyzed his thoughts. After a while, he heard her speak again. You're so young, son. If you were as old as we are, you'd know there's nothing but sadness. Why shouldn't we die, you and I? The childlike empress, the whole lot of us. Anyway, it's all flim-flam, meaningless games. Nothing matters. Leave us in peace, son. Go away. It is Morla who understands what the childlike empress needs. In the snippet of the book, Atreyu tensed his will to fight off the paralysis that flowed from her eyes. If you know so much, he said, you must know what the childlike empress's illness is and whether there's a cure for it. We do, don't we, old woman? Morla wheezed. It's all the same to us whether she's saved or not, so why should we tell you? If it's really all the same to you, Atreyu argued, you might as well just tell me. We could, couldn't we, old woman? Morla grunted. We don't feel like it. Then it's not all the same to you. Then you yourself don't believe what you're saying. After a long silence, he heard a deep gurgling and belching. That must have been some kind of laughter. Morla, aged one, was still capable of laughing. In any case, he said, you're a sly one, son, really sly. We haven't had so much fun in a long time, have we, old woman? Sakes alive, it's true. He might just as well tell you. It makes no difference. Should we tell him, old woman? A long silence followed. Atreyu waited anxiously for Morla's answer, taking care not to interrupt the slow, cheerless flow of her thoughts. At last she spoke. Your life is short, son. Ours is long, much too long. But we both live in time. You a short time, we a long time. The childlike empress has always been there, but she's not old. She has always been young. She still is. Her life isn't measured by time, but by names. She needs a new name. She keeps needing new names. Do you know her name, son? No, Atreyu admitted. I never heard it. You couldn't have, said Morla. Not even we can remember it. Yet she has had many names, but they're all forgotten. Over and done with. But without a name, she can't live. All the childlike empress needs is a new name. Then she'll get well, but it makes no difference whether she gets well or not. She closed her pond-sized eyes and began slowly to pull her in her head. Wait, cried Atreyu. Where can she get a name? Who can give her one? Where can I find the name? None of us, Morla gurgled. No inhabitant of Fantastica can give her a new name, so it's hopeless, sakes alive. It doesn't matter, nothing matters. Who then, cried Atreyu in despair, who can give her the name that will save her and save us all? Don't make so much noise, said Morla. Leave us in peace and go away. Even we don't know who can give her a name. If you don't know, Atreyu screamed even louder, who does? She opened her eyes the last time. If you weren't wearing the gem, she wheezed, we'd eat you up just to have peace and quiet, sakes alive. Who? Atreyu insisted. Tell me who knows and I'll leave you in peace forever. It doesn't matter, she replied, but maybe Uyala in the Southern Oracle knows. She may know. It's all the same to us. How can I get there? You can't get there, son, at all. Or at all, son. Not in 10,000 days' journey. Your life is too short. You'll die first. It's too far. In the south. Much too far. So it's all hopeless. We told you so in the first place, didn't we, old woman? Shakes alive, son. Give it up. And most important, leave us in peace. With that, she closed her empty gazing eyes and pulled her head back into the cave for good. Atreyu knew he would learn nothing more from her. One thing I realized when I was thinking about that is that, interestingly, she decided to give Atreyu the answer to what he was looking for because there was a moment of joy in her reaction to how Atreyu reasoned with her, with the logic that she was representing, how nothing mattered. And so I think that was good. And that's kind of the way out of her rut. Like, if Morla wasn't by herself living for a long time, she would find joy because she would find moments of joy in living. But instead, she just ends up being alone, not having to have any joy from others. So she just exists. I think that's just a kind of great idea for a character. And again, it's very subtle in its message. All right. Whew. Yggdrasil the Many. So a lot of this is in order of all the characters that Atreyu meets, and as well as Bastion. Now, again, something different from the movie that's in the book is in the movie, Falkor just comes and rescues Atreyu before Gamork can get to him, and Falkor just takes him to the Southern Oracle. Now, in the book, it's different. We may get to some of this already, but basically, Atreyu still goes, even after the death of the Artax, to travel to this Southern Oracle. There's a deep chasm that he ends up trying to get past, and within there is something called the Yggdrasil the Many, which is it looks like one thing, but it's basically a bunch of like bluish type of hornets that kind of know how to react, and so that's why they're called the Yggdrasil the Many. And the luck dragon, a luck dragon, is kind of trapped in its web and fighting the Yggdrasil the Many. And anyways, let me just read it. I wrote it down for a reason. All right, Yggdrasil the Many. Arin tries to travel the 10,000 days journey to the Southern Oracle by foot. During the journey, he witnesses Yggdrasil the Many battling a white luck dragon. Atreyu tries to let Yggdrasil free the white dragon so they might fly him to Yulala, the Southern Oracle. However, that would be against the powers bestowed upon Atreyu with the Arin. Because Atreyu with the Arin really, it can only guide and protect him. He can't really interfere with things, and Yggdrasil understands that. And so Yggdrasil says no, he's not going to release the luck dragon for him. But Yggdrasil reveals the secret. So basically, Yggdrasil's poison kills within the hour, but to one who has it inside him gives the power to wish himself in any part of Fantastica he chooses. So Atreyu allows Yggdrasil to bite him, even if only gives him an hour before he dies from the poison. And then he wishes himself to the Southern Oracle. Because basically he's convinced that, hey, it's going to take him way too long to get to the Southern Oracle by foot. And it's going to take way too long. And by then, Fantastica is going to be devoured by the Nothing, and he would fail anyway. So at least he can travel to the Southern Oracle really fast by wishing himself there, even though he's going to die within the hour because of the poison. So, you know, I often wondered, because in the book, I don't think he realized that, hey, how would the Arin be protecting him if it allows him to die within the hour to Yggdrasil the Many's poison? So I wonder if Atreyu decided to do that, just putting on faith that the Arin would protect him. But at any rate, it didn't go over that, and he did let himself get bit willingly, and he wished himself to the Southern Oracle right away. Now, what's great is Falkor, the white luck dragon that was poisoned by Yggdrasil the Many, was left for dead, but he overheard Yakimel's secret that was revealed to Atreyu. Thus, Falcor also wished himself to the Southern Oracle. So one thing about luck dragons, they never give up hope, and he partners up with Atreyu to help him on his great quest. He basically said, you know, I owe you my life. It's like, well, you don't pretty much have only an hour of your life left. So, but anyways, yeah, if you can help me, that'd be great. Yeah, so they partner up. Now, the Nomics, in which you also see in the movie, Urgol and Engiwook. Urgol, a healer, cures Yggdramel's poison from Atreyu and Falcor. Engiwook, a scientist, helps Atreyu pass the 3 magic gates in order to get to Yulala. Yulala is the Southern Oracle resides in the Palace of Deep Mystery. One must pass through the 3 magic gates to reach Yulala. Yulala can only hear in poetic rhyme and only exists in the vibration of sound. So she's not something that's seen but only heard. And the only way you can reply to her is to talk to her in poetic rhyme. For example, in your snippet, who can give the childlike empress the new name that will make her well? Not you, not I, no elf, no djinn can save us from the evil spell. We are figures in a book. What we do what we were invented for, but we can fashion nothing new and cannot change from what we are. But there's a realm outside Fantastica. The outer world is its name. The people who live there are rich indeed, and not at all the same. Born of the word, children of man. Isn't that interesting? Born of the word. Isn't that from yeah, sorry, got carried away there. Excuse me. Yeah, born of the word, the children of man. Yeah, definitely he knows his religion, the author Michael Ende, or humans as they're sometimes called, had the gift of giving names ever since our worlds began. In every age, it's they who give childlike empress life, for wondrous new names have the power to save. But now for many and many a day, no human has visited Fantastica, for they no longer know the way. They have forgotten how real we are. They don't believe in us anymore. Oh, if only one child of man would come, then at last the thing would be done. If only one would hear our plea. For them it is near, but for us too far. Never can we go out to them, for theirs is the world of reality. But tell me, my hero, what you so young, will you remember what I have sung? So Atreyu remembers, and so he knows what he needs to do. He needs to find a human to give the childlike empress a new name. But we'll get to later. But basically, he kind of forgets who he is after going through and meeting Yulala. So things get a little bit tricky. And it's funny how intricately double cyclic it is, because spoilers. Yeah, those whole things spoilers. Basically, Bastion has the memories of Atreyu, because he's kind of like the inner Atreyu's inner reflection is Bastion, and Bastion kind of has the memories for Atreyu, and in the end, because Atreyu loses his memories of himself, and basically last half of the story of the book, as Bastion is losing all his memory of himself, he holds basically Atreyu holds the memories of Bastion, and thus is able to save him and have Bastion get back to Earth, the outer world. Very much like my ayahuasca experiences. It's crazy. I don't know if Michael Ende meant to do that or tell it that way. I don't know. I would love to ask him, but it's there. So amazing how things work out. The Wind Giants. It is learned from the Wind Giants that Fantastica has no borders. After Atreya learned this, he was blown away by the endless war for power, and he was washed upon the shore, having lost to Arin. So names of the wind giants. So that's kind of how he meets Gmork. Gmork, werewolf, tasked by the powers behind the nothing to stop Atreyu from saving Fantastica. A creature with no world of their own, but are able to go in and out of many worlds. In the human world, he appears in human form, but is not human. Isn't it like that, kind of like the idea of archons or the reptilians or something, things like that, whatever you want to call it. In Fantastica, he takes on a Fantastican form, but is not a Fantastican. It is revealed with Gmork's conversation with Atreyu before Gmork knew who Atreyu really was. And here's a snippet from the book. Don't you know what a werewolf is? Atreyu shook his head. You only know Fantastica, said Gmork. There are other worlds, the world of humans, for instance. But there are creatures who have no world of their own, but are able to go in and out of many worlds. I am one of those. In the human world, I appear in human form, but I'm not human. And in Fantastica, I take on a Fantastican form, but I am not one of you. Atreyu sat down on the ground and gazed at the dying werewolf out of great dark eyes. You've been in the world of humans? I've often gone back and forth between their world and yours. Gmork, Atreyu stammered, and he couldn't keep his lips from trembling. Can you tell me the way to the world of humans? A green spark shone in Gmork's eyes. He seemed to be laughing deep inside. For you and your kind, it's easy to get there, but there's only one hitch. You can never come back. You'll have to stay forever. Do you want to? What must I do? Atreyu asked. His mind was made up. What everyone else around here has done before you. You must leap into the nothing. But there's no hurry, because you'll do it sooner or later in any case. Then the last parts of Fantastica go. Atreyu stood up. Gmork saw that the boy was trembling all over. Not knowing why, he spoke reassuringly. Don't be afraid. It doesn't hurt. I'm not afraid, said Atreyu, but I never expected to get my hope back in a place like this, and thanks to you. Isn't that interesting? Sorry. Gmork's eyes glowed like two thin green moons. You have nothing to hope for, Sonny, whatever your plans may be. When you turn up in the world of humans, you won't be what you are here. That's the secret that no one in Fantastica can know. Atreyu stood with his arms dangling. What will I be? Tell me the secret. For a long time, Gmork neither spoke nor moved. Atreyu was beginning to fear that the answer would never come, but at length the werewolf breathed heavily and spoke. What do you think I am, Sonny? Your friend? Take care. I'm only passing the time with you. At the moment, you can't even leave here. I hold you fast with your hope. But as I speak, the nothing is creeping in from all sides and closing around Spook City. Soon there will be no way out. Then you will be lost. If you stay and listen, your decision is already made, but you can still escape if you choose. The crow line around Gmork's mouth deepened. Atreyu hesitated for just a moment, then he whispered, Tell me the secret. What will I be in the world of humans? Again, Gmork sank into a long silence. His breath came in convulsive gasps. Then suddenly he raised himself on his forepaws. Atreyu had to look up at him. And then, for the first time, he saw how big and terrifying the werewolf was. When Gmork spoke, his voice was like the jangling of change. Have you seen the nothing, Sonny? Yes, many times. What does it look like? As if one were blind. That's right. And when you get to the human world, the nothing will cling to you. You'll be like a contagious disease that makes humans blind, so they can no longer distinguish between reality and illusion. Do you know what you and your kind are called there? No, Atreyu whispered. Lies, Gmork barked. Atreyu shook his head. All the blood had gone out of his lips. How can that be? Gmork was enjoying Atreyu's consternation. This little talk was cheering him up. After a while, he went on. You ask me what you will be there, but what are you here? What are you creatures of Fantastica? Dreams, poetic inventions, characters in a never-ending story. Do you think you're real? Well, yes, here in your world you are, but when you've been through the nothing, you won't be real anymore. You'll be unrecognizable. And you will be in another world. In that world, you Fantasticans won't be anything like yourselves. You will bring delusion and madness into the human world. Tell me, Sonny, what do you suppose will become of all the Spook City folk who have jumped into the nothing? I don't know, Atreyu stammered. There will become delusions in the minds of human beings, fears where there is nothing to fear, desires for vain, hurtful things, despairing thoughts where there is no reason to despair. All of us? Asked Atreyu in horror. No, said Smork. There are many kinds of delusion according to what you are here. Ugly or beautiful, stupid or clever, you will become ugly or beautiful, stupid or clever lies. What about me? Atreyu asked. What will I be? Mark grinned. I won't tell you that. You'll see. Or rather, you won't see because you won't be yourself anymore. Atreyu stared at the werewolf with wide open eyes. Mark went on. That's why humans hate Fantastica and everything that comes from here. They want to destroy it. And they don't realize that by trying to destroy it, they multiply the lies that keep flooding the human world. For these lies are nothing other than creatures of Fantastica who have ceased to be themselves and survive only as living corpses, poisoning the souls of men with their fetid smell. But humans don't know it. Isn't that a good joke? And there's no one left in the human world, Atreyu asked in a whisper, who doesn't hate and fear us? I know of none, said Mork, and it's not surprising because you yourselves, once you're there, can't help working to make humans believe that Fantastica doesn't exist. Doesn't exist, the bewildered Atreyu repeated. That's right, Sonny, said Gomork. In fact, that's the heart of the matter, don't you see? If the humans believe Fantastica doesn't exist, they won't get the idea of visiting your country. And as long as they don't know you creatures of Fantastica as you really are, the manipulators do what they like with them. What can they do? Whatever they please. When it comes to controlling human beings, there's no better instrument than lies, because you see, humans live by beliefs, and beliefs can be manipulated. The power to manipulate beliefs is the only thing that counts. That's why I sided with the powerful and served them, because I wanted to share their power. I want no part in it, Atreyu cried. Take it easy, you little fool, the werewolf growled. When your turn comes to jump into the nothing, you too will be an alien servant of power, with no will of your own. Who knows what use they will make of you? Maybe you'll help them persuade people to buy things they don't need, or hate things they know nothing about, or hold beliefs that make them easy to handle, or doubt the truths that might save them. Yes, you little fantastic and big things will be done in the human world with your help. Wars started, empires founded. For a time, Gmork peered out. For a time, Gmork peered at the boy out of half-closed eyes. Then he added, the human world is full of weak-minded people who think they're as clever as can be and are convinced that it's terribly important to persuade even the children that Fantastica doesn't exist. Maybe they will be able to make good use of you. Atreyu stood there with bowed head. Now he knew why humans had stopped coming to Fantastica, and why none would come to give the childlike empress new names. The more of Fantastica that was destroyed, the more lies flooded the human world, and the more unlikely it became that a child of man should come to Fantastica. It was a vicious circle from which there was no escape. Now Atreyu knew it. Mark also reveals to Atreyu before realizing who Atreyu was. Then we'll die together, said Atreyu. So we will, said Gmork, but in very different ways, you little fool, for I shall die before nothing gets here. But you will be swallowed up by it. There's a big difference. Because I die first, my story is at an end. But yours will go on forever in the form of a lie. Why are you so wicked? Atreyu asked. Because you creatures had a world, Gmork replied darkly. And I didn't. What was your mission? Up until then, Gmork had been sitting up. Now he slumped to the ground. He was plainly at the end of his strength, and he spoke in raucous gasps. Those whom I served decided that Fantastica must be destroyed. But then he saw that their plan was endangered. They had learned that the childlike empress had sent out a messenger, a great hero, and it looked as if he might succeed in bringing a human to Fantastica. I wanted to have him killed before it was too late. That was why they sent me, because I had been in Fantastica and knew my way around. I picked up his trail right away. I tracked him day and night, gradually coming closer. The land of the Sassafranians, the jungle temple of Muwamath, howling forest, the swamps of sadness, the dead mountains. But then, in the deep chasm by Yagramo's net, I lost a track. He seemed to have dissolved into thin air. I went on searching. He had to be somewhere, but I never found his trail again. And this is where I ended up. I failed, but so has he, for Fantastica is going under. I forgot to tell you. His name was Atreyu. And then in the book, of course, that's when Atreyu says, "But I'm Atreyu." He finally remembers himself. And the wolf kind of laughed and then died. And still even dead, Gamorg ended up biting Atreyu's leg, and he was about to get swollen up by the nothing, but luckily Gamorg's teeth, having gnashed onto Atreyu, prevented the nothing from taking him right away, because Gamorg was huge. And so Falcor came to find him, because he had the Aron on him, and was able to save Atreyu at, barely in the nick of time. And so in the book, you've got Atreyu kind of with a wounded leg. You don't get to see that in the movie. Although I think in the movie you might even see him limp, but I don't know. But they may have taken that part out of the movie. And again, you don't know. This conversation does not exist in the movie at all. And man, if that was in the movie, mind blown. I would have been like, oh, wow, that's just amazing. But yeah. Alright, so Gaia the Dark Princess, I misspoke earlier. I called it the Lost City or something else, but it's Spook City. She ruled Spook City. She chained Gamorg before willingly entering the Nothing. And here's a snippet from the book. "I had a mission," Gamorg said reluctantly. "You too." Atreyu looked at the werewolf with interest, almost with sympathy. "Were you successful?" "No, if I had been, I wouldn't be lying here chained. Everything went pretty well until I came to the city. The Dark Princess who ruled here received me with every honor. She invited me to her palace, fed me royally, and did everything to make me think she was on my side. And naturally, the inhabitants of this land of ghosts rather appealed to me. They made me feel at home, so to speak. The Dark Princess was very beautiful in her way, to my taste at least. She struck me and ran her fingers through my coat. No one had ever caressed me like that. In short, I lost my head and let my tongue get out of hand. She pretended to admire me. I lapped it up, and in the end, I told her about my mission. She must have cast a spell on me, because I'm ordinarily a light sleeper. When I woke up, I had this chain on me, and the Dark Princess was standing there. 'Gamorg,' she said, 'you forgot that I too am one of the creatures of Fantastica, and that to fight against Fantastica is to fight against me. That makes you my enemy, and I've outsmarted you. This chain can never be undone by anyone but me, but I am going into the Nothing with all my manservants and maidservants, and I shall never come back.' Then she turned on her heel and left me. But all the spooks didn't follow her example. It was only when the Nothing came closer that more and more of them were unable to resist its attraction. If I'm not mistaken, the last of them have just gone. Yes, Sonny, I fell into a trap. I listened too long to that woman. But you have fallen into the same trap, but you did listen too long to me. For in these moments, Nothing has closed around the city like a ring. You're caught, and there's no escape." Other characters, the manipulators I put in there, not much is known about them, but Gamorg mentions that they exist in the human world and are able to control humans through lies. Gaia the Dark Princess seems to have been a manipulator in Fantastica based on the behavior towards Smork. Perhaps Gaia, when entering the human world, becomes a manipulator. The reason why she's a dark princess. She manipulates Gamorg very easily, and then Gamorg was saying that when you enter the human world, you just become a lie, but she becomes a clever lie. And if you're a clever lie, you're able to manipulate through those clever lies. It's not mentioned at all, but these are things you kind of have to think past the book a little bit. You're just gonna have to use your imagination, right? The old man of Wandering Mountain. He's the chronicler. As the childlike empress will never be old, the old man will never be young. He writes down everything that happens in a book called The Neverending Story. The book is all fantastica. What's written in the book is what has happened. It is fixed and cannot be changed. When the childlike empress meets the old man of Wandering Mountain, she enters the memory of Fantastica, and the moment is an egg to her grave and coffin. However, a human can generate a fresh start, as an egg can be the beginning of a new life. And that's how Bastion is convinced to save Fantastica, to also save the childlike empress. Now, once Bastion calls out, and he calls out Moonchild as the new name for the childlike empress, he's transported to the childlike empress, and all is dark, and she bestows upon him she bestows upon him the Aron, which basically gives him the powers of whatever she has, but there are some things he doesn't know about it. You're just gonna have to read it. It's kind of weird. And she asks him why he didn't show up. What took him so long? And he was like, well, because, I didn't want you thinking, like, how could he be the hero? He's just a fat little boy. And he's like he just, like the person who's her hero should be like a prince, a charming and handsome prince or something like that. And childlike empress laughed, and she had him, I think, look into her eyes to see a reflection of him, and in her reflection of her eyes, Bastion wasn't a fat little boy. He was just like a handsome, charming boy instead, prince or whatever. And so he kind of took that form, and then was bestowed upon him the Aron, and was starting to make wishes, and then the childlike empress kind of just disappears. It's like, okay. So it's just things just happen. It's just to get the story moving. Grogaman, the many-colored death. So a beautiful but very, very dangerous creature in all of Fantastica, created by Bastion with the Aron, but also having always existed, like he wasn't sure. Grogaman is Bastion's servant and friend, destined to suffer eternally and at night in order for Paralyn to grow. Through Grogaman, Bastion understood courage. There's a whole lot with Grogaman that happens in the book, in the desert. Was it the many-colored desert or something? I can't remember, but it is a great part. I really like it, and you feel sad for Grogaman, and Grogaman is this beastly lion-like creature, which is referencing quite a lot in Gnosticism. And I'm just gonna kind of go through, because he meets a lot of characters, and these characters are pretty interesting. Hero Heinrich, perhaps the greatest warrior in all of Fantastica, but unknowingly was challenged by the savior Bastion. So Bastion was like a Smurf, like in a video game. He was like, I don't want people knowing who I am. Except there's a mule named Yika that she was able to find out who he was, but Bastion was like, shh, don't tell them yet. I want this to be a surprise type of thing, because there's a tournament in all of it, and just to see who would win, and whoever wins would have the hand of Oglamar, who is like a princess, and they would get married. And the purpose of the tournament was to find out who the savior of Fantastica was. But they would also have like fighting tournaments and all this other stuff, feats of strength and whatnot. Anyways, in a fit of rage, he attacked Bastion, which you're not supposed to do in the tournament, but he was embarrassingly defeated. Now, something I didn't mention is that after meeting with Grogaman, and because of all the things that Grogaman, the first of many, because Bastion was the first that have ever slept at the feet of Grogaman, who's ever wept tears for Grogaman's death, and stuff like that. And so Grogaman bestowed upon him Seconda, which is a magical sword, but if Bastion's in danger, he would Secunda would magically appear in his hands. But if Bastion was to withdraw Secunda from its sheath on his own merit and not have it Secunda withdraw itself to him instead, he would there would just be bad things that happen in Fantastica. So that's how he defeated Hero Heinrich. But also sorry, I'm messing up. So again, one of the wishes that he had, Bastion, once he obtained the Aron, was to be the strongest of all, of Fantastica. So he basically gained superpowers, Bastion, or because he's a kid, he just wants to see what it's like to have godlike powers, just like in a video game. You're gonna enter God mode and play, and then he get bored of playing in God mode, just like in the video game. You get bored. It's like there's no challenge. That's why he created the most fearful, dangerous creature of all Fantastica, because he wanted to find someone as equal to him in power, but of course because he had the Aron, he couldn't. He was safe. So that's the whole build up to Groggerman. That's why that part's so great. All right, so more of Hero Heinrich. He was smitten with Oglamar, who wouldn't marry anyone but the best warrior hero in Fantastica. Now Bastion, in order to get Hero Heinrich out of his rut, because he defeated him so embarrassingly, he produced a quest for him to save Oglamar, because he uses the Aron to wish for things. So he created a dragon. I think the dragon's name is Smurg. And the Smurg kidnapped Oglamar, and in order to save her, he had to pass 3 objectives, gain this lead hammer or lead axe, which was the only way to defeat Smurg the dragon, and therefore save Oglamar, because that would. And but anyways, Hero Heinrich kind of perks up at this and says, "Really?" And overhead, to see a dragon carrying Oglamar, and he's like, "All right, I'm off to go and save her." And then at the end of that passage, it says, basically, he saved Oglamar from the dragon, but afterwards, Hero Heinrich wasn't into Oglamar anymore, and so he didn't marry her. I just thought that was kind of funny. And then he goes, and yeah, you'll see. That's a story for another time. The Achari, they're basically the unhappiest beings in all Fantastica. So there's these weeping worms. He changed them. He wished them into bright-colored butterflies, and rather than being the unhappiest beings, they were the happiest. So from the Achari, the everlasting weepers, they became the Schlamoofs, the everlasting laughers. It didn't go the way as he planned. He wasn't so sure he really did a good deed. They were so annoying with their laughter, and they do appear near the end of the book to really bother him, how they're just weird, oddly unhappy at being happy all the time type of thing. Anyways, Yika, a wise mule. I like Yika along with the 3 knights, Hakurian, his bald Hydorn. There's really not much. They're just kind of companions to Bastion at that point. We'll go more later. Zaid, the wickedest, most powerful sorceress in all Fantastica. So Bastion, because he's made so many wishes, he's forgetting himself and what purpose he has. He goes, well, I want to go and defeat this powerful sorceress, and basically he goes to defeat her. They're kind of like empty. They're empty inside. They're like golems with these armor. They can pretty much defeat anyone except for Bastion. But acting as though defeated, she tricks Bastion and ends up really defeating Bastion. I mean, she feeds into his ego. He gives him a belt which is named Gemmel, and feeds him lies, and that the belt, the Gemmel belt, makes him invisible when he wears it. And I think that was just kind of a part in her to the reason how she can control these golems, these guards of hers are armored, they're empty inside, is because if you're empty inside, she can control that. She can control beings that are empty inside. So I think she was trying to make Bastion empty inside, but didn't quite go as she planned. But she does die in the end, getting run over because there's war at the Ivory Tower, which I'll get into later. So it's interesting. She basically Bastion's best friend is Atreyu, and she plays against feeds Bastion enough lies and doubt that he banishes Atreyu. Anyways, Dame Iola in the House of Change, Bastion learns about the water left, but more importantly talks about his path and how he gets there. And Dame Iola's great. It's she's like this. The thing is, she's like Mother Ayahuasca in a way, right? She kind of reminds him of his mother. He thought it was her mother at first, but it wasn't. And she feeds him, and he's eating stuff that grows out of her hair. And the happier she is about, helping sustain someone, the more she grows more of that stuff. It's great. I like her. Give me a second here. I gotta take a quick break to blow my nose. All right. I did everything wrong, he said. This is a snippet from the book. I misunderstood everything. Moonchild gave me so much, and all I did with it was harm to myself and harm to Fantastica. Dame Iola gave him a long look. No, she said, I don't believe so. You went the way of wishes, and that is never straight. You went the long way around, but that was your way. And do you know why? Because you're one of those who can't go back until they have found the fountain from which springs the water of life. And that's the most secret place in Fantastica. There is no simple way of getting there. After a short silence, he added, but every way that leads there is the right one. It's very Gnosis-like. I don't know how to explain it. But yeah. Bastion's father, at the beginning of the story, and again, I'm skipping around. There's a lot of adventure in the book that I'm skipping past because I just want to get to some of these themes and things like that. So, a snippet from the book. Bastion's thoughts wandered. Suddenly he remembered the long corridor in the hospital where his mother had been operated on. He and his father had sat waiting for hours outside the operating room. Doctors and nurses hurried this way and that. When his father asked about his wife, the answer was always evasive. No one really seemed to know how she was doing. Finally, a bald-headed man in white smock had come out to them. He looked tired and sad. Much as he regretted it, he said his efforts had been in vain. He had pressed their hands and mumbled something about heartfelt sympathy. After that, everything had changed between Bastion and his father, not outwardly. Bastion had everything he could have wished for. He had a three-speed bicycle, an electric train, plenty of vitamin pills, 53 books, a golden hamster, an aquarium with tropical fish in it, a small camera, 6 pocket knives, and so forth and so on. But none of all this really mattered anything to him. None of all this really meant anything to him. Bastion remembered that his father had often played with him in the past. He had even told him stories. No longer. He couldn't talk to his father anymore. There was an invisible wall around his father, and no one could get through to him. He never found fault, and he never praised. Even when Bastion was put back in school, his father hadn't said anything. He had only looked at him in his sad, absent way, and Bastion felt that as far as his father was concerned, he wasn't there at all. That was how his father usually made him feel. When they sat in front of the television screen in the evening, Bastian saw that his father wasn't even looking at it, that his thoughts were far away. Or when they both sat there with books, Bastian saw that his father wasn't reading at all. He'd been looking at the same page for hours and had forgotten to turn it. Bastian knew his father was sad. He himself had cried for many nights. Sometimes he had been so shaken by sobs that he had to vomit. But little by little it had passed. And after all, he was still there. Why didn't his father ever speak to him? And then, not about his mother, not about important things, but just for the feel of talking together. At the end of the story, the change in Bastian had changed his father as well, because he was pretty much no one at school saw him. He was gone for the whole night. It was stormy, and his father called the police trying to find him where he was. And Bastian comes back, and it was pretty much the next day, and kind of that his father realized, like, Bastian being gone and how worried he was and stuff like that, and that was the greatest wish. That was what Bastian wanted, his love, to be loved, and his father, and his father said, you know what, it's gonna get used to all this change in just that short amount of time, because Bastian confessed that he stole a book from Carl Conrad Coriander, Mr. Coriander, and that and his father goes, here, I'll go ahead and straighten out with him. And Bastian goes, no, I should do it. And like his father's like, what? and so his father was kind of impressed, but kind of like, I need to figure how, let's figure this out, and like, we'll take the day off tomorrow. Me, no work, you, no school, all this stuff, and Bastian would go the next day to talk with, kind of apologize to Carl Conrad Coriander. However, Carl says, what book? I don't remember any book. There was no book here. And Bastian's all weird. But then Carl they get into talking about the book, and Carl's like, yeah, I know what you mean. He's like, come back. We'll compare notes with our experiences. And such a good book. Some objects of note, the book, and I'm talking about objects. The Neverending Story. The book is all Fantastica. Where the book is in the book. What is in the book is fixed and final. It has happened. It cannot be changed. So people want to know where the book is, and the answer is it's in the book. It's funny. The Ivory Tower, the residence of the childlike empress. Here's a snippet. Here it seems necessary to pause for a moment and explain a special feature of Fantastican geography. Continents and oceans, mountains and watercourses have no fixed locations as in the real world. Thus, it would be quite impossible to draw a map of Fantastica. In Fantastica, you can never be sure in advance what will be next to what. Even the directions, north, south, east, and west, change from one part of the country to another. And the same goes for summer and winter, day and night. You can step out of a blazing hot desert straight into snowfields. In Fantastica, there are no measurable distances, so that near and far don't at all mean what they do in the real world. They vary with the traveler's wishes and state of mind. Since Fantastica has no boundaries, its center can be anywhere, or to put it another way, it is equally near to or far from anywhere. It all depends on who is trying to reach the center, and the innermost center of Fantastica is the Ivory Tower. Just something interesting. The Aron, a large golden amulet with two snakes, one light and one dark, which were biting each other's tail and so forming an oval. It is a badge of one acting on orders from the childlike empress, acting in her name as though she herself was present. It's very similar to the Ouroboros, this one representing duality. The three magic gates. In order to get to Uyulala's home, which is the southern oracle, one must pass the three magic gates. What is interesting is that it is similar to that of my three ayahuasca experiences. And each experience was a lesson. In each lesson, I found who I was not, and who we are. In passing each of these lessons, I no longer fear death. I am more humble, and I understand that only love has no boundaries. So the first gate was the Great Riddle Gate. That's the two sphinxes that you see in the movie as well. A test of conquering fear of being lost to the vastness of oblivion. Fear is gone after passing the gate. That actually was like my second ayahuasca experience. What it, the magic mirror gate, what is revealed is your innermost nature. That was my first ayahuasca experience. In this magic mirror gate, Atreyu sees Bastion as the reflection of himself. Passing through the gate, all memories of self, of Atreyu's past life, aims, and purposes were lost. He had forgotten the great quest that brought him there. He was like a newborn child. The no-key gate, hermetically sealed with fantastic and selenium. That's what it actually says in the book. It can only be passed through by the reader's will. It was Bastion's will that enabled Atreyu to pass the no-key gate. And that kind of reflects my third ayahuasca experience. Not quite, but it's basically we're here for each other. And that's how we kind of get past all these obstacles. And the no key gate is you know, like I said, everything kind of circles around, is kind of mirrored in some ways. The only way that Atreyu was able to pass was because of Bastion, and the only way that Bastion was able to pass to get back to Earth was because of Atreyu. And it was because they couldn't pass because they had no memory of themselves. They weren't even sure what they needed to do, but the will of their counterpart was able to get them through. So it's very, very great. The water of life are basically tears of joy. That's kind of how it was mentioned, because his father cried, and that was the tears of joy. The water of life that Bastion brought back from Fantastica. I noticed that there was quite interesting occurrence of the number 7. So a candelabra with 7 candles was in Bastion's school attic. There were 7 days and 7 nights that Atreyu was gone to see Uyalala, the Southern Oracle, when he got back to Urgul and Ingiwook. And there's 7 powers that the childlike empress has. She had left 3 to protect Atreyu and Falcor, and she used 4 to get to the old man of the mountain, but she had to leave those 4 powers behind in order to finally meet the old man. So stories to be told another time to be told. So finally I got through it. It's almost 2 hours long. If you're still here, great. If maybe you'll be interested. So there were, I think, 11 stories, which always end in but that's another story and shall be told another time. The thing is, it can't be told another time by the author, Miguel Ende, because he's passed away. So someone has to do it. So who's going to do it? And, if you have to go through the normal channels of the bureaucracy and whatever money you make, whoever owns the rights to the Neverending story or whatever, they may not allow it, or all the money goes to them. So you just want the stories out there so you could share it, and other people can maybe come up with the stories too and share it. But that can't happen unless you just go ahead and do it. So what I'm gonna do is just have fun with it. I realize my daughter remembers all the stories, not all the details, but the stories that I made up for her. So I'm gonna make up more. I think I'm just gonna make a lot more stories. There's a new story that she's really excited about, unicorns. It's like one of the reasons that she wanted to watch and read the Neverending story, because unicorns were mentioned. But I told her there aren't any stories with unicorns in the book or in the movie. There's drawings of it in the movie, but I do have unicorn stories for her, which I will also share. So, but that's not going to reside in the fan fiction of the Neverending stories. Basically, what I'm going to do is create fan fiction of these stories that were supposed to be told at another time, and tell those stories. Again, not gonna get any money off of it. If you want to donate to me, just in general, I'd appreciate it. But it's there just for you to share, you to read and enjoy, and also if you have children, for them to read it, for them to enjoy, and maybe we could get more people just to be more creative and pass things on. And it shouldn't be owned by people who want to control what the creative process is, which we see all the time, and especially with YouTube and other areas, is they want to pass what they want passed, but whatever you create, they don't want us to do it. They want to block it from happening. And I just think that that's interesting. And there's a good reason for it, I think. Not for us, but for them. All right. So here's one part. I should probably have written a title, but oh well. I'll probably write titles for these when I'm ready, and then present them to everyone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it down. You can download it in PDF form, and then I'm just going to do a reading of it. And they're just going to be called, I think they're going to just be called something like Stories to be Told Another Time. No, the stories that were supposed to be told for another time being told. Something similar to that. I haven't quite figured it out, but I know where I'm getting at. Vushazul stopped when he saw them. Hoo, he said. What's going on? What are they all doing here? They're all messengers, Gluckuk explained. Now, this is basically in the movie, not quite. So, in the movie, you see the giant rock biter, which is rock chewer. You find the short guy that was, I think he's one of the Oompa Loompas. He's in a lot of things with the racing snail, and you got the I forgot, it's some type of creature. I don't quite remember, but he had the sleepy bat. But one thing missing was the will-o-wisp. Will-o-wisp. But anyways, all four of those ended up becoming friends, and so this is kind of pretty much the beginning of the first story to be told for another time. They're all messengers, Gluckuk explained. Messengers from all over Fantastico, all with the same message as ours. I've spoken with several of them. The same menace seems to have broken out everywhere. Nighthawk, that's what it was. The Nighthawk gave vent to a long wheezing sigh. Do they know? He asked. What is it and where it comes from? I'm afraid not. Nobody knows. What about the childlike empress? The childlike empress, said the tiny in her tone, is ill, very ill. But maybe that's the cause of this mysterious calamity that's threatening all Fantastica. But so far, none of the many doctors who've been conferring in the Magnolia Pavilion has discovered the nature of her illness or found a cure for it. That, said the Nighthawk breathlessly, is woohoo terrible. So it is, said the tiny. In view of the circumstances, Vazul decided not to put in for an appointment. 2 days later, Blub, the will-o'-the-wisp, arrived. Of course, he had hopped in the wrong direction and made an enormous detour. And finally, 3 days after that, Pjornkrug Zark, the rock chewer, appeared. He came plodding along on foot, for in a sudden frenzy of hunger he had eaten his stone bicycle. During the long waiting period, the four so unlike messengers became good friends. From then on, they stayed together. But that's another story and shall be told another time. So, that story is going to be told. I'm surprised it hasn't been. I hope I can. I wonder. I've been looking. I couldn't find any. So, it's going to be a return to Fantastico. Here's a second one. Old Chiron never went back to the Ivory Tower. He's the centaur, remember? The famous physician of all Fantastica. But he didn't die, and he didn't stay with the greenskins in the grassy ocean. So basically, he knew where to find Atreyu. Greenskins, basically Atreyu has greenish skin. They're these warriors in the grassy ocean. Just to give you a little bit more backstory, show the greenskins when they're ready, they hunt for the purple buffalo, and the purple buffalo are the only ones that are dangerous enough to kill them. They go because they're so dangerous and are able to kill the greenskins. You know that they find it that they are worth hunting, type of thing. So Atreyu hasn't even hunted one yet, and that he was actually gone. It was his hunt, and he had to come back because of Chiron had to bestow the quest. It wasn't an order. It was just like, hey, do you accept this quest? And Atreyu goes, yes, I do. And so that's how it was done. But part of it did kind of appear in the movie a bit, but of course in the movie there wasn't a centaur. His destiny was to lead him over very different and unexpected pathways, but as another story and should be told another time, and shall be told another time. So whatever happened to old Charon, we shall see. 3. Later on, Engewick became very famous. He was the little gnomic. In fact, he became the most famous gnome in the world, but not because of his scientific investigations. That, however, is another story and shall be told another time. What's interesting about Engewick, and it mentions it in the book, because his entire life research was in studying the 3 magic gates in order to know who Uyulala, the Southern Oracle, was, because no one came back who survived ever told him, for whatever reasons. And the thing is, when Atreyu came back, the 3 magic gates were gone forever. So his whole entire work of how to get past the 3 magic gates was in vain, because it didn't matter anymore because it no longer existed. And Atreyu had no memory of it, so he can't really pass on the information to Engewick, and so Engewick was just sadly depressed. So it'd be interesting to see what happened of Engewick and his wife Urgel. 4. He turned back to Groggerman, who lay motionless with eyes of dead stone on his pedestal. The strip of light from the door fell full on him. Goodbye, Groggerman, and thanks for everything, he said softly. I'll come again, I promise. I'll come again. Then he slipped through the cleft, and instantly the door closed behind him. Bastian didn't know that he would not keep his promise. Much, much later, someone would come in his name and keep it for him. But that's another story and should be told another time. Because the story of Groggerman is so sad. Even though he's supposed to be the most terrifying creature of all of, and dangerous creature of all of Fantastica, because of that, he's alone and very lonely, and it's just be so great to have him have a visit from a friend again. It's, I don't know. All right. And I had thoughts for another part of if there was to be a sequel to the Neverending Story, but that'll have to be told another time. It has to do with the old city of old emperors. Basically, City of Old Emperors is all the ones who have failed to find what they most wanted by having the Aran, and they used up all their wishes when they totally lost themselves, and they got stuck in Fantastica, and so all of them were kind of stored in this city for Old Emperors, and that's where Bastian had visited. So, plenty more in the book. Read the book. All right. 5. As for hero Henrik, he actually succeeded in reaching Morgold, the land of the cold fire. He ventured into the petrified forest of Wagda Bay, crossed the 3 moats of Rhaegar Castle, found the lead axe, and slew the dragon Smurg. Then he brought Orgrimmar back to her father. At that point, she would gladly have married him, but by then he didn't want her anymore. That, however, is another story, and shall be told another time. So I think it would be great is just to share the adventures of hero Heinrich, of the obstacles he had to pass through, the details of it, and why he didn't want her anymore. So what happened? And then what happens after Hero Heinrich? Like, Hero Heinrich's motivation was because of Orgrimmar. or wanted to marry. He just was smitten by her. But now that he doesn't want her anymore, what's his motivation? And also, he surpassed probably the most dangerous of quests in all of Fantastica. He was able to accomplish it. And so, what's left for him to do? So that's also another interesting kind of thing. Is like your motivation's gone, or you have a change of motivation. You've accomplished your feat that no one else could have done. So what's left for you to do? Does Hero Heinrich kind of put up his sword and his armor and just kind of become a farmer or something? You know, we'll have to wait and see. 6, but that made no difference to Yika. Yika is the mule that knew about Bastion. Bastion ended up picking to be his ride. Now, Yika couldn't... I mean, as mules can't have offspring. So, Zaid, the very evil sorceress, she convinced Bastion to part with Yika because she wanted to feed his ego. It's like, someone such as you shouldn't be riding a mule. Someone such as you should be riding, like, you know, something better. So she kind of convinced him to get rid of Yika, but he used the Aran to wish for Yika really fine white-winged stallion to get married and have a son. So this is what happened. But that made no difference to Yika, for she really did find the white-winged stallion. They married, and she had a son who was a white-winged mule. His name was Pataplan, and he made quite a name for himself in Fantastica, but that's another story and should be told another time. So basically, rather than like a Pegasus, it's like a mule version of a Pegasus. That'd be kind of funny. Like, yeah, we'll see. That night, and 7, that night, the usual harmony of the 3 deep thinkers was disturbed by a first radical difference of opinion, which years later led to the breakup of the community. Then Ushtu, the mother of intuition, Shirki, the father of vision, and Sipu, the son of reason, each founded a cloister of his own, but as another story and should be told another time. So, was it Bastion or Atreyu? I think it was Bastion went to go and tried to get, because there's these deep thinkers and he wanted to learn what wisdom that they had. They didn't really have much. One was, they all were humans, but interestingly, one was the head of like a eagle. The other was the head of a fox, and the other was the head of something else. Very similar to that of the deities we see around the world. It's just obviously done on purpose by Michael, the author. 8. A few days later, Gamel was found by a blackbird. Gamel was the belt that was Zaid gave to Bastion so he could turn invisible when he fastened it on. Anyways, a few days later, Gamel he ended up dropping Gamel the belt when he was, I think, flying. Was founded by a blackbird who had no suspicion of what the glittering object might be. She carried it to her nest. But that's the beginning of a Norse story that should be told another time. So, Michael Ende is giving hints of stories that are going to be told another time. Whether he was going to tell it, I don't know. But, I mean, he lived quite a long time past the time he wrote the Neverending story. But he never... I wonder if he wrote it but it never got published, or what. Or maybe he meant for someone else to tell the story. We will almost never know. 9. And there Sakana lies to this day. Sakana again was the magical sword given to Bastion by Groggerman, the many-colored death. Once Bastion unsheathed it himself and not have the Sakana magically appear in his hand to defend himself, it kind of, I think it turned rusty or old or whatever, and basically he buried Secunda in the ground and covered it with some leaves and branches and stuff. And there lies Secunda to this day, for not until far in the future will one come who can wield it without danger, but that is another story and should be told another time. Because it's never any story, it's the idea that more humans are going to be able to visit Fantastica. You'll see in number 11, but number 10, when Heisbald, Hydorn, and Icarian arrived, those are the three knights that accompanied Bastion, with what was left of the army. This was after the war in the Ivory Tower, the battle for Ivory Tower. They saw what had happened. They were puzzled because they knew it was Zaid's will alone that had moved the Hollow Giants, so they thought it must have been her will that they should trample her to death. But knotty problems were not the knights' forte, so in the end they shrugged their shoulders and let well enough alone. But what were they to do next? They talked it over, and deciding that the campaign was at an end, discharged the army and advised everyone to go home. They themselves, however, felt bound by the oath of fealty they had sworn to Bastion and resolved to search all Fantastica for him. That was all well and good, but which way were they to go? They couldn't agree, so deciding that each would search separately, they parted and hobbled off, each in a different direction. All three had countless adventures, and Fantastica knows numerous accounts of their futile quest, but these are other stories and shall be told another time. 11. Mr. Coriander closed the door gently and looked after father and son. Bastion, Balthazar, Bucks, he grumbled. If I'm not mistaken, you will show many others the way to Fantastica, and they will bring us the water of life. Mr. Coriander was not mistaken, but that's another story and should be told another time. So that's the end. Very, very many elements of Gnosis here that resonate with me. Might resonate with you. I didn't call it Gnosticism, but there are kind of parts to it that kind of coincide. Gnosis is just the way I put Gnosis is just a knowing and not knowing how to express how you know. That's like the weakest description of it, but basically you just know, but you just don't know how to let others know. It just seems so easy, but it's so difficult in hindsight, and one way to express it is with art, with stories, I guess, and illustrations, music, feelings, synchronicity, signs. I don't know. If we knew, it would be easy, but it's not. It is easy, which is the crazy thing. And the hard part is you can't prove any of it. You can tell people what they can probably do. It's like, here's my path. Maybe if you follow the same path, maybe you'll get the same experience. But obviously that doesn't work because that hasn't happened yet. Ayahuasca, maybe. Like, everyone who tries ayahuasca kind of understands the first feeling, the understanding of the pain Mother Ayahuasca has, the protection you get second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, whatever times. If you take any more times, like, they're not going to be the same, I don't think. Maybe. It depends on if you learn the lessons. What happens if you don't learn the lessons? Do you just repeat the same thing? Does it just get worse? Or whatever? I don't know. Anyways, thank you for joining me on this one. I know it's long, 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I can't really do this too often, but you know, I'm still trying to feel my way around what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing anymore, but maybe I'll figure it out and get to doing it. Maybe what I am doing is what I'm supposed to be doing, and therefore I don't know what else I should be doing, but maybe I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Gosh, it's so difficult. I guess we'll figure it out, or maybe we've already figured it out. We just don't know we figured it out already. It's so weird. Anyways, have a good night. Hopefully the end of the year in December is good for everybody. New Year is better. Who knows? And I have a fishing video. I was fishing for about an hour and a half in freezing rain on Friday. Because I had some time to myself because my wife is back and stuff. And I'll show that video pretty soon. I think I'll just do a live stream. It's like 8 minutes long, and it's just gonna play out, and I'll upload it to the various places I upload it to. Anyways, thank you, and have a good night.